Welcome in. It is the Holy Grail BCJ podcast right here on BearcatJournal.com. I'm Chad Brendel. He's Dave Simone. And once again, we have a very esteemed guest, although you've got a tough act to follow, Mr. Dan Hoard, as your broadcast partner, Jim Kelly, lit the show on fire last week.
I listened. He was great. No surprise. I love Jim Kelly. You love Jim Kelly. Your audience loves Jim Kelly. It was fantastic.
It was the more we can do to take the light off of me and Dave and shine it on someone else, the better this podcast is every week.
Well, who knows more about UC football history than Jim Kelly? His dad was the first wide receiver in school history to have a 100-yard receiving performance. He led the team in receptions 3 years in a row. This is year 31 as a broadcaster, so you made an excellent choice.
And we are honored to have you on as well. You have become, over the years, the voice of the Bearcats. Started at Fox 19 with the Bearcat Bounce, something that we use to this day here on BearcatJournal.com. You were part of those days, and then became the voice of the Bearcats over the years. We've had a podcast where we've done the history of Dan Hoard and UC. I think let's keep the focus on what could be a special season right now. And Dan, you have been to many seasons of Camp Higher Ground. Does this feel different when you're out there? Does this look different to you when you're watching this team?
It does. I'm not sure that I ever thought that they would have more talent than they did in 08 and 09, but this team is ridiculous. And it's obvious by the number of NFL scouts we see at practice every time we're out there. It was double digits for at least one practice that I attended. And you just go up and down that roster and, he's a pro, he's a pro, he's a pro, he's a pro. It's amazing. And I can't wait for the opening game against Miami.
I'm going to ask you this because it's been brought up a couple times on the message board, and I'm interested to see how close your answer is to mine. There was a lot of talk about the defense with Marcus Freeman leaving. Would they skip a beat with Mike Tressel at the helm? The offense has had a good deal. Now, there have been days where the defense has been ridiculous. You were there, what was it, Monday, where it almost felt like you couldn't get a pass off because the pass rush was so ridiculous that entire practice. But what is your take on the success that the offense has had throughout? We are on day 14 of Camp Higher Ground.
That's the biggest story of training camp. So I'm glad that that's what you started with, because in spring football, the offense struggled, including the first team offense. So when Desmond Ridder doesn't look great, and we all know how good he is, you can only attribute that to one thing: how good the defense is. So the fact that the offense is having any success at all at training camp, and they are, including Evan Prater at times, that's really encouraging to me that those guys have come a long way, because we know the defense hasn't gotten worse. I don't care whether Marcus Freeman is here or not. Luke Fickell is ultimately in charge of the defense. The talent level is off the charts. So the fact that the offense is having enough successful moments at the practices I've attended leads me to believe that the offense is going to be just fine.
Dave?
All the focus, or not all the focus, but a lot of the focus, rightfully so, on Des Ridder coming into this season. Had the opportunity to go pro, decided to come back. Has the opportunity, depending on number of games, I think, to be in the top 5 winningest quarterbacks in the history of college football. Where have you seen his growth the most from maybe end of season to now?
I think the accuracy looks better to me, and I think that's always been the question mark with Dez. His arm is strong enough. He's incredibly mobile. We know all of that, but he went to work with Jordan Palmer, I think specifically on trying to find ways to be more accurate, and I've seen some evidence of that. Is he ever going to be Drew Brees? Probably not, but even just a slight uptick in accuracy will make him one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I think he's already on the short list. The fact that he's led Cincinnati to 31 wins in the games that he's played in is incredible. So if that is improved, look out, because there's not much more that he can improve at this point.
And it's funny because you covering the Bengals, me being a big Bengal fan, into the draft, you always hear a lot about guys are either accurate or they're not. And one guy in particular, and I'm not comparing him to Dez, but Josh Allen for the Bills, I did not think he was going to have a good NFL career because of how inaccurate he was. And he was even less accurate than Dez at Wyoming. And this last year, he just took a monumental leap. So while it's harder to do, it's definitely not what I think it was thought of as maybe even 5 years ago. So if he can improve that accuracy, like he's got every other tool that I think teams want. They just want to see, better touch on the deep ball and just overall improvement in accuracy. So it is kind of interesting that, he knows what that area is, and he's already focusing on that, kind of looking to that next level. And if he can make that even an incremental jump this year, teams will see that it's there, and maybe with even more coaching and it being your full-time real guy job, that they can even get it to a higher level, which would probably put him well into the first round.
And what do Josh Allen and Desmond Ridder have in common? Jordan Palmer. That's who Josh Allen has worked with for the past several years in the offseason. He attributes a lot of his improvement in that area to the work that he's done with Jordan Palmer. And I'm sure some of the things that he worked on with Jordan Palmer are the same things that Desmond Ridder has worked on with Jordan Palmer. So I don't think there's any question he's going to be more accurate. And when you ask Des, what would you like to improve on this season? The stat that he always brings up is completion percentage. And there are ways to do that without being the most accurate thrower in college football. You can have a lot of screens and dump offs and things like that, and that artificially builds up your completion percentage, but that doesn't really describe the Cincinnati offense. They're not suddenly going to become a team that runs a million bubble screens to get their quarterbacks completion percentage close to 70. Mike Denbrock's going to look to throw the ball down the field. And I think Dez is going to be even more accurate than he's been in the past.
70%, that magic number for him?
That's the goal. I don't see him hitting 70, but I think he can get into the high 60s, and that's plenty good enough, especially when you add in his ability as a runner.
Well, I think you definitely, too, look at yards per attempt. And if that number is going up and his completion percentage is going up even a little bit, then that correlates to much better accuracy because you're taking more chances down the field, but yet still increasing your completion percentage.
And more targets that are going to be open downfield. That helps as well. So with the emergence of some of the wide receivers that we are seeing at camp, I think there's a very realistic possibility that some of those deep balls that were incomplete, partly because of the throw, but also because of the person they were being thrown to, have a much better chance of being deep ball completions.
I think that's one thing that's jumped out to me about this team so far in camp, Dan. We know that they've got a really, really good boundary receiver in Alec Pierce. We know historically they've been very good in the slot. They've had good tight ends to throw to. It feels like to me, the field wide receiver position, the outside wide receiver to the field side, has been kind of the weakness, the bugaboo for this program since they had that massive haul of Mikhail McKay and Johnny Helton and Chris Moore and Shaq Washington and Alex Chisholm and there's one more, Max Morrison.
Nice.
Right?
It's a pretty good pull
six.
off the top of your head right there.
Got all six. Where they've struggled is they haven't had a great threat at field wide receiver. We've seen an excellent battle this camp, I think, between Tyler Scott, Jaden Thompson has kind of had a resurgence in this camp. Blue Smith has shown to be an adequate outside kind of possession type guy. And all of a sudden, I think, at least to me, watching them, it feels like that's the difference, is that half of the field, and that's the wide side of the field, is no longer a black hole. It feels like they can make big plays from that spot.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I just think the depth in general now at wide receiver, because, Alec Pierce goes down last year. Now you've lost your best wide receiving threat overall. If something happens to him this year, and hopefully it doesn't, but you just have so many guys. You name several, then you take Michael Young, then you take Trey Tucker, Will Pauling,
Jordan Jones.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a shame that I keep forgetting about him. For times at practice that I look up and I see number 5 and I'm like, wait a second, he's really good. And right now he's not at the top of the totem pole, but he's a good player. So there are a lot of players that can contribute, and I'm sure they're going to rotate a bunch of them in, hopefully because they've got big leads, but also just in general that, the ability to keep a receiving core fresh is such a big advantage.
Over the years, I have now anointed you, because of all the time you spent with Dave Lapham. I have now anointed you an offensive line guru. Because you are the voice of the Bearcats, you get VIP access to areas of the field that Kaz doesn't let us. He's shocked. We have to wear shock collars. He shocks us if we try to get to the places that you're allowed.
It is a nice perk, I admit it.
What are you seeing from this offensive line? And how hard is it to judge this offensive line being tasked with stopping that defensive line every day in practice?
It's a real issue. And I'm having a hard time getting a firm grasp on how good the offensive line is for that reason. I think John Williams is going to be a really good college left tackle, but he's a redshirt freshman and he's blocking monsters or trying to block monsters on a regular basis. Nobody's going to look good if they are matched up against Myjai Sanders at practice for a bunch of snaps. Nobody. I mean, I may be the best left tackle at Ohio State or Alabama, but
James Hudson held his own, and he was a high round NFL draft choice, and Myjai still got him plenty.
Right. And that was Myjai last year.
Yeah.
And Myjai's better now. Right. Myjai's better now. So it's hard for me to get a grasp on how good the O-line is. I think it's fair to say that's the biggest question mark on this team. With Jake Renfro missing some time at camp, that's complicated things because they've been moving McConnell inside, sometimes the center, and trying Gerhardt and, trying to figure out what the best guys will ultimately be if somebody has to miss a game at any of the positions. So you wind up doing a little bit of musical chairs. I think the 5 guys that are projected to be the starters are going to be a good group. I think they have a sub at tackle and a sub at guard that are fine. When you get below that, I have some question marks for how strong they'll be, but I do think that the 5 guys that we expect to be healthy and lining up in week 1 are going to be pretty good.
Who are a couple guys that maybe, I don't want to say off the radar, but you have caught your eye that we should look forward to maybe have a bigger impact this year than they had last year, or maybe haven't had an impact at all and that you think can make some plays this year?
It's interesting because my under the radar guys, I think, are really good players, and I just don't know how much playing time that they will get unless the games are lopsided. I think Jaheim Thomas has come along by, leaps and bounds for how he looked a year ago. I mean, last year he looked like a guy with a good physique. Now he looks like a guy who's going to be an outstanding college football player. I think Deshaun Pace is in the same category. Those would be the 2 guys that immediately come to mind for me. Evan Prater looks so much better than he did in spring football. Not that he's, really under the radar. He's Mr. Football in the state of Ohio 2 years ago. But in the spring, honestly, I thought he was bad, pretty shaky. And it's really due to the offense and due to the fact that he didn't get many snaps last year, being the 3rd guy on the quarterback totem pole. But now he looks pretty good. I think he's going to be a very capable replacement for Dez down the road, assuming that, he winds up winning the job next year, which I think is likely. So just off the top of my head, those are the first 3 guys that come to mind, but it's a pretty long list. And again, unfortunately, some of these guys are just a little bit buried right now because of how good the guys ahead of them are.
Dave was really hoping you'd say Will Pauling.
Well, I was going to ask if you'd like to jump on and be like a co-founding member of the Will Pauling for Heisman the Ring of Honor fan club. I'm currently the CEO and president and accepting all applications right now.
Yeah, Heisman might be a bit of a leap, but I did mention his name when I was running down the depth at wide receiver, and certainly he's a guy that's made a lot of big plays. Every day that I've been out there, he makes at least one or two big plays. So yeah, Will Pauling is definitely a name who's kind of come out of nowhere. I guess since he scored the game-winning touchdown in the spring game, that was the first time I kind of really circled him on my training camp roster. And now at Camp Higher Ground, he's a guy that is making plays every time you go out there.
Well, it kind of shows just in the last 2 years where that wide receiver room has gone. If he was doing this now 2 years ago, he'd probably be a starter or right there getting reps with starters. And now he's been impressive at every practice I've been to, and that's not as many as you guys, but like there's a chance they're going to find a way to get him on the field, but there's just so many, especially in the slot.
He's number 3 in the slot.
There's just not a lot of footballs to go his way. So, you know, how much is he really going to play if they're with so many guys now?
Correct. I mean, who do you take off? I mean, you hate to take Trey Tucker off the field or Michael Young if he's in the slot. I do think that he's going to wind up being a contributor in some way, shape, or form, but I just don't see him getting a ton of snaps except for when games become lopsided, and hopefully that's the case almost every week.
Back to Evan Prater real quick. I was worried coming out of the spring. I think you were too. I know Williams and I talked about it today with ESPN had a writer there today that's doing a feature on UC. Coming out of spring, I was worried about the progress of Evan Prater and whether he was ready to be Des Ritter's backup in such an important year. And I would say now, and I said this last week with Jim, I think he's farther ahead entering his redshirt freshman year than Desmond Ridder was. Because I know we were all pretty worried about Des if Des had to go into the game going into that season. It turned out to work out pretty well. But your thoughts on just how monumental that jump has been from the spring, where we all were looking at each other, many of those practices going, he's got a chance, but he's got a long way to go, to watching him at this camp and thinking he might not be there, but he at least has the GPS to the neighborhood.
Right. Yeah. I think in the spring, I thought, okay, I can see some of the potential there, but God forbid if Des got hurt during the regular season, I'm not sure how good that's going to go. Now, again, I still say, please God, don't let him get hurt. I certainly hope that's not the case, but now I do have a lot more confidence that they would function fine if Evan went into the game. Is he better than Des was as a redshirt freshman? I don't know. I think they're pretty comparable, actually. Tremendous running threat right off the bat, and a guy who's going to be a little bit inconsistent at this stage of his career as a thrower. But when you go to practice now, he is regularly making good throws. Whereas in the spring, it was just a handful of times at practice. Now, every possession, he's going to make a decent throw, or at least, every few possessions, he's going to make solid throws down the field. And in many cases, deep balls. He's shown the ability to throw a good deep ball at Camp Higher Ground. So I guess in the spring, I had a little bit of a question in my mind. Is he going to be as good as we thought? Is he the quarterback? Oh, that issue to me has been resolved. I'm pretty confident that he's the guy and is going to be a very worthy successor to Des down the road.
In your talks with Luke since the Peach Bowl and now in camp, and I want to kind of combine these since you also do obviously cover the Bengals. To me, camp this year has just, I don't know, it's taken on a much more, I don't want to say NFL feel, but like they just seem like it's very, very business oriented, and like we know we're damn good and we probably should have went undefeated last year. And this is our time to, prove that to ourselves, prove that to other people, whatever the case may be. Do you get a sense that there's kind of this, like, I don't even know the right word to say, but much, NFL, like more, this is a job than in maybe camps past?
It doesn't look anything like an NFL camp because they hit people.
Well, that's true.
So you cut in and out of me a little bit, but I did get the gist of your question. I think that's true, partly because the team is, relatively speaking, so old. I mean, with these super seniors that have come back, this is a very mature group. So I think because of that, it is maybe a little more business-like or professional than it normally would be. But as long as Brady Collins is there, you're also going to have that, that crazy youthful excitement and the element of fun that Brady and his staff bring in to play. So I think there's more feeling than it normally would be, but there's always still something kind of crazy going on a regular basis that has that collegiate, youthful excitement and fun to it as well.
How different is that than all the other staffs you've seen at UC? The ability this staff has to navigate back and forth between business, and we understand that these are 18 to 22-year-olds and they need to have a little fun in the process as well.
It's definitely one of Luke Fickell's strengths. I don't think there's any question about that. I love watching him at practice because, he's very intense. I mean, he is locked in on every snap at practice, but he rarely blows up. And maybe that's because he's got a really good team, but it doesn't happen very often. And then when it does, because it's rare, I mean, it really gets everybody's attention, including people like us. I mean, when the switch flips, you don't, want to mess around. You didn't want to have a smile on your face when the switch flips. So he has that intensity. The guys respect it, but he also has a unique ability, I think, to connect with everybody, young, old, white, black, different environments. It doesn't matter. He is one of those special people that connects with everybody on the roster, everybody on the coaching staff, even everybody working at Camp Higher Ground. I think it's one of the reasons he's so successful. And one of the things, it's a really minor thing, but it always has caught my ear since he's been the head coach. At the end of practice, they gather in a semicircle. I usually kind of try to stand on the periphery and see kind of what the theme was of the day or whatever he has to say. And he always, with no exception, thanks them for their hard work. He'll say, "I appreciate you guys." And that's, I don't know, maybe that's a minor thing to everybody else, but I'm just not accustomed to head coaches at the college level or the pro level telling his guys after a hard, intense practice that he appreciates it. Is that a big deal? I don't know. Maybe it's not. But to me, that always catches my ear, that he makes the point to let them know every day that he appreciates their hard work.
Yesterday is also a perfect example. It's his birthday. You would think on the head coach's birthday, he goes helmets, shoulder pads, leg pads, like lace them up. We're going out there. We're having, a 2.5 hour practice. We're lifting weights all day. We'll be back out here for a walkthrough at night. Helmets only. It was a spirited practice. The guys clearly responded. Helmets only. No weights in the afternoon. And they canceled meetings at night because they did their sketch comedy that we saw. They gave him his birthday present. To me, that's something that for guys that play for you, that goes such a long way when you give them a present on your birthday. Like, I think that means a lot. And that's he's a master at like what you just said and what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, he's got great feel for stuff like that. Great feel for when to push, how hard to push, when to take your foot off the gas pedal a little bit, because he was a great player at Ohio State. Maybe it's because he's worked for such great coaches in his coaching career and learned from the very best. But his feel for that kind of stuff is as good as anybody I've seen, football, basketball, whatever, in the coaching profession.
Not sure how much time you've had yet to kind of focus on the conference with everything going on, but just your general thoughts on UC versus the rest of the league. Do you think there's a pretty big gap, or is it tighter with a few teams? And then kind of who is your, if UC is going to go to the conference championship, who are maybe a couple teams you think they could possibly face?
I think UCF is the second most talented team in the league, and I don't think the talent gap is huge. I think they've got a great quarterback, obviously, in Gabriel, although UC has handled him pretty well in the last 2 years. But I do think going through a coaching change typically pushes you back at least a notch or two in year one. So the talent to me is comparable, but Cincinnati's stability in coaching is going to give them an advantage. I'm not ruling Tulsa out because they're always underestimated. I think they're going to be better at quarterback. They lost an experienced quarterback who I didn't think was very good. So even though, once again, people are sleeping on them, they're not picked to finish near the top. But to me, those are the next two best teams in the league.
All right, we're going to let you go. I know you are just checking in to your hotel in Washington, D.C. for the Bengals game tomorrow night. And we give you a great deal of thanks for taking a little time out of your schedule to join us before you run downstairs and get some food before everything closes. In this new COVID world, nothing's open after 9 o'clock.
Correct. And we're staying at a hotel actually on the University of Maryland campus. So I'm in College Park, Maryland, as opposed to Washington, D.C. And just driving in here, there didn't seem to be much nearby. Although it's a college campus, there must be. I'm sure I could get
a late night pizza
if I
place,
had to.
yeah.
The hotel restaurant, it is bound to be. But I'm going to try to grab something at the hotel restaurant here while I can. So I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Keep up the great work. I love listening to you guys when I go for my regular runs. You keep me informed when I can't get there. So on behalf of all Bearcat fans, thanks for all you do. It's awesome.
Thank you. And is Sam old enough to listen to us say bad words now?
I would prefer that you still avoid certain ones. Now, it has amused me over the years that people will say, gosh darn it, and do a sorry Dan. Sorry Dan really only needs to be reserved for the F-bomb, I think. Most of the other stuff, Sam and I are not offended by, but if you can leave that out when he's sitting in the back seat and we're driving to school, that would be good.
How old is Sam now?
He's huge, Dave. He's huge.
Sam is a 5'11" and a half inch, 15-year-old 10th grader. First day of school is today at Walnut Hills. He's grown a foot in the last year. He has a lot more hair than his father. And he loves his Bearcats.
Well, that's great. We're glad we've progressed past the UCLA game and Dave After Dark. So I'm glad to hear it.
Hopefully you'll be back in time for camp on Saturday. But if not, I will see you back on campus probably next week sometime for practice. Great. It's great to have you, Dan. Appreciate it. And we will talk to you soon. A huge thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Anytime. Thanks for having me on.
All right. That's the great Dan Horde, the voice of the Bearcats. As he gets ready, you can just go ahead and end. As he gets ready to call the Bengals game tomorrow night on 700 WLW. And that one of the things that surprised me the most in my 16 years on this beat is that you and Dan Horde are best friends.
That's awfully nice of you, but that is
a little bit of an over
a
exaggeration,
reach
but
and
not
exaggeration
really,
to say the least. But
not really.
It is funny, when at the was it the spring game?
Every time you guys see each other in the spring, there's an hour and a half draft talk that ensues.
He's asking me questions now. It's like a role reversal.
And I imagine for you, that's one of the unexpected great perks that have come out of having this job.
The spring game always lines up perfectly with just like 2 weeks before the draft, so I can try to get as much info as I can from Dan, right before the draft happens.
And generally, I'll be like, Dave, what'd you learn from the spring game? And you're like, I was talking to Dan. I didn't really get to watch much of it.
No.
Which I can assure you, everyone in the fan base would do the same if given the choice of charting plays at the spring game or spending 90 minutes talking to Dan Horde about
if I can
the Bengals
talk
and the
football
draft.
with Dan for an hour and a half, or watch the threes run around and not complete passes, and what do you think I'm going to do?
And it's crazy to think back, man. This podcast is 7-8 years old, something along those lines now. The fact that we have the ability to just reach out and nab Jim Kelly and Dan Horde in back-to-back weeks to talk about what they've seen at Camp Higher Ground is pretty damn cool. It's pretty damn cool.
And you know what, though? It is awesome. And I think part of the reason, and this isn't just, it's been a UC thing, but like when you allow us to have the access that they allow us, you're able to develop these relationships where you can ask someone like Dan, like Jim Kelly, like the assistant coaches, like Anthony I don't think other podcasts get this type of guests because they don't really get a chance to get to know these guys. I saw it again the other day. It was like UCF guy was, on the Twitter was talking about like what they did in the 15 minutes that they got to watch practice the other day. Like, do you think they can just like get Mike Denbrock to come on their podcast, or their version of Dan Horde? Like, do they even know who they are?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of it is a credit to UC also for allowing these relationships to be built by allowing us to go to practice and stand there and watch all of practice and talk to people and and understand that we aren't protecting nuclear codes. We're just playing football.
Yeah, it is very cool. We crossed pretty convincingly over 1,500 subs yesterday during the sale. And I know I talk about this at every milestone we hit, man, but like, it's pretty cool to watch this thing from the inside being built and the work that we all put in and how much it means to all of us to see it grow like it has and to become what it's become. Like it blows me away. It really does. And that's a huge credit to, like you said, the access UC allows us to have, the relationships we've been able to build. And I think the community and the connection with the fan base that we have, because it's very unique. Like I got a call Thursday, or not Thursday, today's Thursday. I got a call yesterday from somebody at CBS that was like, man, I don't know how you guys do it, but when we do these sales, you guys are right up there with the big boys. I know Tuesday was the first day of the sale, and we were 4th in the country. And it's a big deal when corporate calls and they're like, I don't know how you guys do it, but you're the only small site that ever punches up like you guys punch up. Yeah, well, unfortunately, at 75% off, we're not going to see any of that until next year. No, I know.
But that kind of is like the thing is when we're not in Ohio State, we're not a Alabama, we're not an Auburn, a site like that. it's very hard to grow if you're not able to bring real value to your fans. And I think I surf around a lot and check out a lot of other sites, and the sites that I would say are similar to our size, it's just not in comparison as far as message board traffic, information coming from the quote unquote owner, contributor, however many people they have. It's like a barren wasteland of nothing. So like when you're a smaller, UC isn't this like fan base that has been, around for 100 years and has national championships stacked on top of national championships that, it's just a thing to be a UC
right.
fan. So you have to be able to give the people something. And thankfully we've been able to develop really good relationships where there's legitimate value to being a member. So, and I think people, once they join, they realize that it really is worth it. I mean, to be in a group, and it's not even as much as like, yes, people want the information. Why would you pay money to just like chat with other fans if there wasn't some sort of like info involved? But being a part of a group that is so active is also a really big, drawing point, I think, because there's just nowhere else you can go to, get information and be in a community like we've developed at Bearcat Journal.
And all that's to say, thank you to everybody that's given us a shot in these past couple days. And we will continue to do what we do, which is bust ass and provide as much awesome content as we possibly can provide over the next year. And it should be a hell of a year. Can we
get to the damn season? Like, this is the part of the year that I'm like, I just want to play a game. I don't know what else I had to say. Like, the defense is really damn good and the offense has been pretty good too. Like, let's just play a damn game.
Yeah. It was, I'm not going to lie. There was, I was supposed to do practice and then radio this afternoon and then come home and do this podcast. My alarm went off at 7:30. I had a text from 5 minutes earlier saying practice was moved to 4:15. At that point, it was either go to practice and see if they could find somebody to do radio, or do radio and not cover practice today. I called. They got James Hot Take Rapine to do radio for me, and I was able to go out to practice, and I was more than happy to lay back down for a few minutes, because those last couple days of camp, boy, your body just does not want to get out of bed. It does not want to get out of bed at 7:30, especially for somebody like me that's a night owl that is not very good at mornings to begin with. I was a little upset, but not nearly as upset as normal when you get that, hey, we're changing your whole day. It was more like, oh, that's okay. I'm okay with it today. But I did go to practice today. I don't know that I'm going to do a full recap tonight. So this podcast will probably have to serve as the full recap tonight. So go over my notes real quick. The opening today was 2-point conversions.
Oh, the opening. Got to practice those.
The opening, for those that don't know, determines what side of the field they warm up on the next day. The side that wins gets to host stretches and warm-ups. It's just one of those small things that Luke Fickell does every day to create competition. Defense dominated 2-point conversions today, or at least dominated the first team in 2-point conversions today. The first team went 0 for 3. Second team went 2 for 3. Evan Prater
need better 2-point plays.
2-point. Evan Prater found Trey Tucker and Blue Smith on a pair of 2-point conversions in the opening today. So that was exciting.
It sounds very exciting. I'm really upset that I couldn't be there for that.
One of the plays was a Myjai Sanders swat at the line of scrimmage. I think we're also going to see a large number of those this year.
Oh,
we saw a large
sure.
number last year. But when he kind of holds back and gets those arms up, good luck getting it over it. I thought Todd Bumpus had a really strong practice today, running with the ones opposite Sauce Gardner. You know, we talked about him a lot at the beginning of camp, that he was, you know, one of the culprits of some of these young wide receivers starting to make a name for themselves. He has bounced back. I thought he had a really good day today. The running backs, especially, they did a couple run game periods today where they were working on the run game. Saw good runs from Jerome Ford, from Ryan Montgomery, from Charles McClellan, from Ethan Wright. They each had, you know, at least 2 and a couple of them 3 noticeable gains on the ground. So a good day for the running backs, and a good day for the deep ball. Drew Donnelly with a couple long touchdown receptions, one from Evan Prater, one from Hoying got in the action today. Jacob Hoying, who is Luke's nephew.
Well, hey, that's the second deep ball to the Hoying to Donnelly connection. Yeah,
so keep an eye on that one. You know, we talked a lot about the Jack Perry relationship with some of those guys he had built because he had thrown so many balls in the spring. But now we're looking at Hoying to Donnelly. We're seeing that a pretty good amount. Dez hit Pierce deep. Prater had a dart to Trey Scott. Dez hit Wyatt Fisher. Wyatt Fisher with his name back in the action for a 50-yard touchdown. He hit Lenny. Dez hit Lenny for a 20-plus yard pass. And Prater had a good 25-yard touchdown run. Cole Smith missed from about 43, just a little bit wide left. DeBlanco had a sack. Prater found Nate Lawler for a touchdown in the red zone from the 4-yard line. That's about it for my notes today.
All right.
Oh, did I say Joel DeBlanco had a sack?
I think so. I think he did.
Okay. Wanted to make sure I got Joel his credit in there.
Yeah, we're to the point where we need to play somebody else, because honestly, I don't care about anything you just said.
Yeah, I tell you what, the fun thing, normally it takes until like by day 7 or 8, like I'm out of things to write about practice.
Because normally they're not this damn good, and like not that many guys are making big plays, whether it's offensively or defensively. But like we know the deal. Like, can the tackles hold up? Can Jake Renfro stay healthy? If that's the case, the offense will be fine, and we know the defense is awesome. Like,
yeah,
we can't just make up things to talk about. Like when you're coming off a 10-1 season, and you pretty much bring all your good players back, like what else is there to say? When you
surprisingly, there's been way more than I thought we would have to say.
Right, but that's because there's like a lot of good players, but it's at some point it's taken longer. But at some point you're just like, I mean, you got 2.5 weeks of practices. You can only say the same stuff so many times.
Which I think we have done a good job of not saying the same thing. I try hard. That's what makes it difficult, is I try hard to not just say the same crap over and over and over again. Well, I don't think that's interesting.
They've helped us by different guys doing things. It's not been the same 3 or 4 guys on offense, 3 or 4 guys on defense, which has been nice. If that was the case, then we would have exhausted this a while ago. But I think we're to that,
exactly.
I think we're to that point.
Yeah, today was getting to the point. It was like, man, I don't know about this practice report tonight.
The scrimmage Saturday, 2 weeks before the first game, is not going to be some, knockout, drag out scrimmage.
Yeah, I also would say
it's probably going to be very situational. Working on things that you don't work on a ton in practice, but you need to work on them for the operations of a game, i.e. special teams, how the hell you line up. We return kicks left, you return kicks right. different punt formations, different punt.
Well, no, they'll have a situational scrimmage for that back at Nippert.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that might be the gist.
No, I think Saturdays they usually do 2 like legit scrimmages, and then they'll usually end like camp or once the first day they're back at Nippert with the situational scrimmage. But because school started earlier this year than it has in correlation to when the first game is, they have to come back to campus this weekend to start school on Monday. The school would not let them stay out at Camp Higher Ground for a couple additional days to finish up camp the way that they normally would. But the other thing I wanted to say, everybody calm down about guys being dinged up in camp.
It's camp. What the hell do you think's going to happen? No one's going to twist an ankle or have a muscle strain or something?
And if it was serious, you'd know that there's something serious going on. Here's the thing. Here's kind of the best way for you guys to judge this, especially to some of the new folks. We do not report injuries. So if we mention that a guy is like a little dinged up, it's nothing serious. Because if there was an injury, you know what we wouldn't be doing?
Mentioning him at all.
Right. It wouldn't,
and we'd be talking about their backup a lot.
Right.
If someone's name isn't mentioned for a week straight, it's probably not because they're not having a good week of practice.
Yeah.
It's probably because they're not practicing.
So if I say this guy was out today, like there's at least 4 guys I know that missed practice today that were probably close enough that if it was a game week, they would be fine. Like there wouldn't even be a thought as to whether they would be practicing or not. So just, I know it's part of what fans do.
You
to stress about everything.
That team 2+ weeks away from their first game.
With huge aspirations. The last thing you need.
Dude's not practicing right now is not a big deal.
Right. If we get to Miami week or even we're going into the bye and there's guys that we're not seeing, then there's a legit reason to have some concern.
Right. Or if you were relying on young guys, it'd be one thing, but we're not.
Right. So there's nothing to be stressed out about right now, injury-wise. Promise.
Cross our
fingers. Fingers crossed. Like that's as of today. Like I didn't.
We know how that's gone in the past. Last practice of camp.
Yeah, that was a worrisome camp because we went through that camp with almost no dings or nicks or bruises.
Yeah.
2 years ago. That was when we came out of that camp. We came out of that camp thinking, wow, this team's healthy. Like almost everybody made it through without missing a practice. And then the last day of camp, Wiggins tears his ACL. And the first day back on campus, McClellan tears his ACL.
Yeah.
You don't ever want him to be too healthy coming through camp because it's football. Injuries are coming.
Yeah, right. I did want to ask you about something that I've started to notice, and it just kind of makes me laugh. And it's not necessarily UC related, but it is. So as the season's gotten closer, I've been, kind of checking in on AAC teams. I mean, I know Indiana and Notre Dame pretty well, so this is mainly like AAC teams. And it started in like the spring and now has really kind of ramped up, is whether it's articles or podcasts or whatnot, I keep hearing this whole notion of, well, this team has really, they've really taken a step forward, and, you just don't know after last year because they didn't have a spring practice and they didn't have summer workouts, and they've had all that stuff this year, and, they're stronger, and they're this and they're that. And I just kind of have to laugh because, like, UC didn't have those same things either. And outside of UCF and the conference championship game, they dog walked everybody and the Peach Bowl. They dog walked everybody up and down the field. So, like, if the team that kicked your butt last year without spring football and summer workouts, what do you think is going to happen this year?
Yeah, and
it's like this built-in excuse that, like, but they don't think that other, like, the good teams didn't also go through those things.
I mean, what I would say is, like, we've seen significant jumps from numerous players from spring football through camp.
Right.
So, yeah, you might have gotten better.
So did we.
So did we. Like, yeah, that's not going to make the difference for you.
that's like, I you know, and I'm sure it's all very accurate, but like, I was listening to the SMU podcast today, and they're talking about how the offensive line is like much stronger and much more physical, and they just didn't have those opportunities last year because of no spring practice and no summer workouts. And I'm like, so, like, UC's defensive line is much stronger and much more physical too. Like it's like they think that, like, they're going to make these gains on UC because UC's not doing these things. I don't.
Yeah,
the
foundation
kind of makes me laugh how the conversation kind of goes. Is like, that's like an excuse on why they weren't good. And yes, it plays a part in it, but like, that was for everybody. So
yeah,
the teams that were in the playoff also didn't have those things. It didn't seem to matter.
Very true. Very true. I mean, like we talked about with Prater, with the wide receivers, with a lot of these younger guys, you've seen guys take a significant jump in camp this year in their physical stature and their ability on the field. Yeah, I mean, sure. If you think you made up that ground and that a developmental program like UC wasn't developing in that time, more power to you. More power to you.
Well, that's why I'm like, so, like, I'm trying not to be naive about it. Like, I just think they're really, really good. And especially in the conferences, like, look at the teams that are supposed to be competing with them. They either have a new coaching staff or they have a new quarterback.
Yeah.
UC has a coach going into his 5th year and a quarterback going into his 5th year. That has, I mean, I'd actually like to do this. And outside of Dylan Gabriel, has Des Ritter won more games than every quarterback in the AAC combined? Every quarterback that's going to start this year in the conference, outside of Dylan Gabriel, has he won more games than everybody else combined?
Mark, you love stuff like this. Get us an answer, Mark.
I mean, I'll just quickly go Preston Stone, Tanner Mordecai at SMU. Neither one of them has won a game. Whoever Tulsa's quarterback has maybe won a game or two. Tulane's quarterback was a freshman last year, so I think they won 6 or 7 games. Navy's quarterback, I don't know if he's the returning guy, but they only won a couple games last year, so say that's, say he won 2 of them. Clayton Toon has won a decent amount. Holt Nailers has won maybe double digits. That would be really close, and I still might say that Des has won more. Memphis's quarterback, if it's Grant Gunnell, he started 1 year at Arizona. He maybe won 5 or 6 games. Like, it's quarterback and coach. And the team that was the best team in the league last year has by far the most stable quarterback coach combination.
Well, and the other thing, I was thinking about this today, like, in modern football, there's 4 things, right? Coach, quarterback, pass rusher, lockdown corner. Like those are the four biggest entities in football right now, right?
Yeah, I would say like elite offensive tackle, but yeah.
Yeah, that would probably be fifth on the list. I would have that fifth. Maybe fourth ahead of lockdown corner.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at it like from a draft perspective, your best tackle will 9 times out of 10 go ahead of your best corner.
Yeah, that's fair.
Just look next year. Evan Neal from Alabama will go before Derek Stingley.
Oof.
Like,
Stingley might be generational.
No, Evan Neal is generational.
Okay.
Do you want to hear some crazy shit about Evan Neal?
Sure.
So he was number 1 on Bruce Feldman's freaks list. 6'5", 340. They timed him at running 18.5 miles an hour. He has a
fast
30-something inch vertical, and they put, when they jump up on the boxes.
Yeah.
He did the splits on 42-inch boxes. Jumped up, one leg on one box, one leg on the other, 42.
I've seen that video.
That dude is like,
okay.
Unless there's a quarterback, he's the number one, like the number 1, number 2 pick.
So they have 4 of the 5.
Yeah, but like, yes, like you're saying, like especially in college football, like I think you can get away in college football with not an elite offensive line way easier than you can get away with not an elite defensive line. Like if you don't have a good defensive line, you're going to get your doors blown off in college.
Yeah.
I mean, you do in the NFL too, but like the teams in the playoff last year, like Oklahoma doesn't, like they have good offensive line. They have good offensive linemen. Not going to say they made the playoff, but like, Iowa State had a really good team last year. North Carolina had a really good team last year. UC had a really good team last year. Like they didn't have like elite offensive lines. They had really good defenses. North Carolina had a really good quarterback.
UC had, for college, high-end tackle play.
Yeah.
But the interior was a work in progress for a large portion of the season.
For sure.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think there's a huge gap in the conference. Like we'll have the season preview podcast the week of the Miami game. So I'm not going to get into like that, but I think there's a 2-game gap between UC and whoever they play in the championship game.
Because you expect UC to go undefeated, and you expect whoever's there.
I can't see whoever else goes to the championship game only losing 1 game in conference.
Houston's interesting because they don't play the Central Florida or Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, but they still have to play
SMU, Memphis,
Tulane, SMU, Tulsa, and Memphis, and Navy.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think, but at least those 4 for sure. I think. But yeah, we'll get into that much deeper. But I just thought that was interesting. Like you just keep hearing this more and more from like your middle of the road to back end teams, like that they missed out on all this stuff, and that's why they had a rough year. Which, yeah, sure, that I'm sure that played a big part in it. But like the good teams also missed out on that stuff too.
Very true. I'm about good. You? I'm ready to take the rest of the night and chill and have somewhat of a day off tomorrow. I'm spent, man.
Yeah,
I'm spent.
I mean, like I said, I'm just ready, like, for a game.
I think we'll get to a couple practices next week, and then the following week we'll get into our in-season rotation, which is Tuesday practices. We'll get to see, and then hopefully we'll have our luncheon with Luke every Tuesday resume on campus. So we're close. We're not there yet, but we're getting close, David. Did you see the guy that just did he send it to you?
What's that?
The GIF of Luke.
Oh, wrestling?
In high school. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll retweet that out. It took 6 of them to get him in the tub yesterday. And he wasn't fighting it.
What a strapping young man.
He wasn't, if he didn't want to go in that tub. Here's the funny part, the backstory to that. He stood. So last year was the only year they didn't throw him in the tub on his birthday, just with everything going on, But the 3 previous Camp Higher Grounds, they have given him a bath in the cold tub on his birthday every year. He knew if he came over there, it was going to happen. So he tried to wait it out. He stood there were scouts from the Falcons and the Lions, I think, yesterday.
Yeah.
Falcons and Broncos. He stood with the scouts from those 2 franchises for a good 25 minutes, hoping that the players would give up and just disperse and leave him alone. And after 25 minutes, it became pretty evident that there was 10 of them that weren't giving up the mission. So he walked over there,
really soaking up the cold tub time, waiting for him.
Yeah. And so he walks over there, and then you see him like vultures start circling behind him. And he looks and he's like, look, let's get it over with. It still took 6 of them to get him in the tub. And if he wanted to, he could have one by one taken all of them out.
Just let me get my phone out of my pocket and you guys can throw me in there.
I don't think he has his phone on the field during practice.
No?
If I had to guess. I don't think so.
I wouldn't think so either. You never know.
I would guess that would annoy him to have his phone dangling in his pocket as he's out there during practice. But yeah. Go check my Twitter feed. I just retweeted Luke pinning some sorry sap Edmonds from Hoban and Akron in 56 seconds.
So next week we will have Anthony DeFino on.
Yes.
We'll fire him some questions about game day stuff, which in talking to him, he's very excited for since he has not had experienced game day yet at Nippert.
Right.
So, some of the things he's flying a little blind on, but we'll get an update on obviously, what needs to happen COVID related. We'll get an update on if there's new food and beverage options, if there's any new concession stand type things, Are you
going to open it up for fan questions, or is this one, are you going to handle the questioning?
Not opening up to fan questions.
Okay.
We've got
last time you did.
I did.
This time is more specific, so I didn't know if that was
the last time.
Yeah. All right.
I will try to we will try to get out of him their plans for conference realignment and also who they are scheduling for home and home in 2024-2025.
I think it was Monday. It might have been Tuesday. They all run together.
I have a list of the teams that have availability currently, but that list has since diminished thanks to the SEC.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to get anything out of them. It was either Monday. I think it was Tuesday. The media have been dining at Higher Ground this year after practice for lunch, and it was me, Justin Williams, and Keith Jenkins from the Enquirer, all sitting at a table, getting ready to start our lunch. And John Cunningham was there they had a donor event at practice that morning. It was Tuesday, I think. And he starts to walk over and he gets ready to sit his plate down, and he's like, I feel like this is a trap.
Bad idea.
I feel like this is a trap. So he sits down and we're taking it easy on him. And Justin says something along the lines of, been pretty busy lately. And he's like, yeah, a lot of meetings, a lot of talking. And I was like, so you guys been talking about?
You had any good barbecue lately, John?
What you guys been talking about up on the 8th floor of the Linder Center?
Haven't by chance been to the Salt Lick or Franklin's, have you?
He declined to answer that inquiry, but
I will
gave
say,
it a
though,
shot.
to our fans, and obviously we have some new members thanks to the sale. This is not anything that we've ever experienced with the university. Anthony, if you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have a suggestion, in a professional and courteous manner, I cannot endorse enough emailing it to him, because he will respond. And he will respond in a pretty timely manner.
And if it's not timely enough, he'll apologize.
Like, I know we've talked in the past about, like, we feel like there's a disconnect and some people feel like their voice isn't heard. And I can promise you, if it's not some just rant or some ridiculous critique you have, he will get back to you. And he will take your thought into consideration. And 9 times out of 10, he probably won't do what you're asking him to do. But, you know, you can only start from somewhere of having someone to reach out to and feel confident that your email is not just being looked at by some secretary and then deleted because they don't want to send it off to the person that, you know, would actually have an answer to your question. So I can't thank him enough for answering some questions that I've had on behalf of members and then being able to relay that information back to the message board. And I'll have more stuff that has come up since the last time we talked. So, you know, if you have stuff for him, I know he is willing to read the emails and probably get back to you.
So looking forward to having Anthony next week. That's a hell of a 3-week run. Jim Kelly, Dan Horde, Anthony DeFino, and then you and I with our season prediction podcast.
Do we get a guest for that? Or do we just the 2 of us?
I think people want the 2 of us on that one.
Yeah.
We haven't had Justin in a while. Maybe we'll bug him.
That's who I had thought about today.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Well,
I already know. I've been locked and loaded for that baby since whatever, January 2nd.
Right.
And I ain't changing my mind. So, although the last time
you might want to go 11-1 just in case.
I actually thought about that the other day. I said to myself, like, maybe you should just say 11-1, because the last time you said 12-0,
the bottom fell out of this bitch.
I'm not seeing that. So
I'm not either, but that could be bad juju. You and 12-0.
I don't know. I nailed it. I nailed it last year.
Yeah. But that wasn't 12.
Yeah, but it was COVID. That makes it even harder.
That's what she said.
You're disgusting. My mother listens to this podcast.
Hi, Mom. I was talking about COVID.
Yeah. Okay. But so it's all the preseason one's always a fun one, and then we get into our weekly game podcast where we try to figure out how the other team's going to score more than 21 points.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we've had lunch at Higher Ground, dinner at Higher Ground. It hasn't really been a thing because we're not there at night. And when we do night practices, they don't get over until like 10 o'clock. So it's like snack time instead of dinner time. Dinner's a whole different deal, bro.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
They had Indiana fried chicken.
What is it? What is Indiana fried chicken?
It was very peppery. It was
And how
fried
is that
chicken.
different than any other state's fried chicken?
It wasn't like it wasn't super crispy, but it had a good breading on it, and it was
is
very
it like is it more like a broasted chicken?
I mean, it was fried, but it wasn't like it didn't look like it was like heavily floured. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like not this huge batter that like
right.
You know, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's more of just like when you do chicken wings and you like put just a little
light
bit.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like a Hooters wing that's like covered in batter.
There was more pepper in the batter than there was flour. It was very peppery.
I can get behind that.
It was very good. They had fried catfish fillets. That would it was really good catfish. They had ears of corn that they had just gotten from a local farmer that morning. I love corn on the cob. And then mashed potatoes, homemade mashed potatoes with a white gravy. And then for dessert, normally for lunch, they just have like a pan of like they have these like Bearcat bars.
Yeah,
that are like peanut butter and chocolate.
They had the day that I was there. It was the Bearcat bars. Well, tonight on Higher Ground they had these big like strawberry shortcake like.
Yeah, that's the difference about dessert.
Tonight on dinner. Let It Fly, it was like they were showing the food, and there was like
dessert at dinner. They have like 3 huge tables full of like they had ice cream cake with like Oreos, like cookies and cream ice cream cake. They had these dessert bars that were like chocolate and cream. They had strawberry shortcake. Oh, dinner was a different deal, brother. It was, I walked like actually it takes about 45 minutes for me to drive home from Higher Ground. I got home, I got situated. I texted with Dan to make sure that he was at his hotel and set up. I sent him the link. And by the time I finally sat down, like it finally hit me, I'm stuffed. Like, ugh. I had a large Indiana fried chicken breast. I had a big piece of catfish. I had mashed potatoes. I had corn on the cob. I had the cookies and cream ice cream cake. Like now I get lunch. I didn't get the whole like you gained 30 pounds coming out here. Because it's usually like a sandwich and a pasta and like fries or curly fries or potato skins. Like it's a lunch, right? You don't walk out of lunch like, ugh, I'm so full. Dinner was a different deal.
Do you think they have like an omelet station for breakfast?
I know it's like a giant breakfast bar. So I don't think they have an omelet station, but I think it's just like giant pans of eggs and bacon and sausage. And
that's what we need, like a donor to step up and have like a carving station for dinner, like an omelet station for breakfast. Like that could, you know, when Bearcat Journal really hits it big, we'll step up with the food since we're
it's kind of our thing.
Couple of husky fellas.
We're just as much about food as we are coverage. It's like our number 2 thing: coverage, then food, and then alcohol below that.
Yeah,
that's the 3 things that we try to do well here.
Have you still not had a beer?
No, I haven't.
Why? Just try it.
One, because I just haven't really like, if I have beer, I'm going to like have beer. And I've just been so busy and I have to get up in the morning.
To find out if it makes you throw up.
Well, yeah, but then I won't feel good the rest of the night and I won't get to sleep.
You haven't had one.
So I might try one Saturday night because we don't have anything Sunday. We should get done with the scrimmage. I should be home at like 4 or 5 o'clock so I could have dinner and then start getting the content ready for the scrimmage. And maybe I'll try to have a beer Saturday night. I still have not. Time has not been on my side the past couple weeks to give it a try, but it still hasn't happened.
Well, I hope it works out for you Because if that was me, that'd be rough.
Again, I'm just afraid of what happens if I have one and get sick again. Like, I know it's the end of the road, as Boys to Men would say.
I don't think you're going to. I think you'll be fine. That's my professional doctor, opinion.
Did you stay at a Holiday Inn Express last
No, but
night?
I went to college for about as many years as it takes to be a doctor.
Yeah, but you weren't 40 plus years old in college.
No.
So you don't know how 40 plus year old bodies react. I don't know. I hope you're right. Hopefully by this time next week, I can give you an answer that I had beer and it was fine.
Do you just start with like non-alcoholic beer?
Maybe. I don't know that. No. Why would I do that?
What if you can only have non-alcoholic beer?
Then I just wouldn't drink beer anymore.
I know. Yeah.
See, the difference is I can still have bourbon.
Right. There's other options.
Yeah. I am not limited to one option. So I don't need to resort to the non-alcoholic.
I'm very, very excited for, since we've gone off topic big time.
What's that?
Hard Mountain Dew.
Is that a thing?
It is. The Boston Beer Company is making 9% Mountain Dew.
Like malt liquor type Mountain Dew?
Yeah, like Mountain Dew with booze in it.
Yeah, but there's these Hornitos and High Noon.
Yeah.
Like Hornitos makes actual drinks with real tequila.
Yeah, like the High Noons have vodka in them. They're not like seltzers or
Right. So is it going to be Mountain Dew with actual hard liquor, or is it going to be like?
Well, I think it's malt because it's Boston Beer Company, so I think it's like a malt.
A malt liquor type deal.
But yes.
I had my earphones in wrong the entire show. I just noticed that.
Very excited about that.
Maybe I can have that. I'm a fan of Mountain Dew on occasion.
I'm a big fan. Maybe too big of a fan.
Like I'll go out of my way at times to have Skyline and Taco Bell because those places both have great Fountain Dew.
It's like, Mountain Dew at Skyline and Taco Bell, Diet Coke at McDonald's.
I go either regular Coke at McDonald's or majority of the time sweet tea. Although I will say McDonald's has the best Sprite. Somebody described the Sprite at McDonald's years ago as spicy. And I think it's right. Like it's like spicy, kind of. Like it hits you different, the Sprite at McDonald's.
Oh, for sure. Like there's definitely the way that the different, I don't know how they do it. Like there's different, like to me, I'm a Diet Coke guy. Like I can't drink regular Coke, but like Diet Coke at McDonald's compared to Diet Coke anywhere else, it just doesn't taste the same.
Yeah.
Same with Coke.
Yeah, it's totally different. But yeah, you got to have the Mountain Dew with the Conies or the Taco Bell.
Yeah. The funny thing is, like I also do, I grew up in Northern Kentucky. I grew up on Dixie Chili. Dixie Chili, I have to have Coke. And Skyline, I have to have Mountain Dew.
Yeah. Well, because
it's weird how your brain.
Nobody likes Pepsi. Let's be real.
No, I couldn't tell you the last
diet Pepsi. That's just appalling.
Either I couldn't tell you the last time I've had a Pepsi. Like maybe a decade since I've had a Pepsi.
My mom is the person that when like you're at the restaurant and they're like, "I'll have a Diet Coke," and they go, "Is Diet Pepsi okay?" She goes, "No."
No, it's not. It's not
like,
okay.
Not okay.
I'll have a Mountain Dew.
Like,
I'll have a Mountain Dew. Thank you very much.
So, but yeah.
I'm the same way. Coke. We have Pepsi. I'll have a Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
All right. We've gone off the rails enough.
That's all right.
Yeah. No, I mean, you need this sometimes at the end of the pod. We were very UC centric the last show and 3/4.
That's right.
So we needed to
do we have
mix
any?
it up
Do
a
we
little
have any
bit.
basketball? Anything basketball to discuss? I don't want to leave out
the Miami thing. The Miami thing.
Oh yeah, I don't even. Less trips to Talawanda, not more.
Well, here's the thing. The way that the scheduling has been done in the past, there was always an extra home and home in there. And they weren't looking to add another high major home and home at this point for this season. So they had to schedule one. So they scheduled Miami because it's just an easy up and back. And Miami will be here next year. So it's a one-time home and home. I don't think anybody likes it, but that's
it's not
just,
it's not a huge deal. It's an easy deal. Like,
right.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. On like my beef is much more football. I mean, there's 30 basketball games. If they want to play Miami every year in basketball, play Miami. Like, I don't care about that. Like,
and they're not playing Miami every year.
Right.
I promise.
So,
it's a one series, one home and home type deal. I wouldn't stress too much about it if I were anybody.
Two questions. How awesome is it that Rasheed Wallace is on Memphis's coaching staff?
Oh, don't lie.
And two, how many extra bennies are Jalen Durden and Imani Bates getting to go there?
I'm guessing it's more than six figures.
Well, I mean, I don't know if this is true or if you saw it. Like, supposedly Durden turned down like $2 million contract with whatever the other
overtime
overtime
elite.
Yeah.
It's in the seven figures. It's in the seven figures, dude. There's no question about that.
Hey,
I don't think there's any question.
Go for it, man. Whatever.
Yeah, get your money, son. I ain't mad at him.
No, it's still gonna be funny.
I ain't mad at him.
Tournament.
There's gonna be a lot of eyes on the American Athletic Conference this year. That's for sure.
Are they both in? Will they both be in this year?
Yeah, they're both reclassifying.
Reclassified.
Yep. They're both reclassifying. They'll both be at Memphis. I mean, I guess Imani hasn't committed yet. His official is.
He's either going to Memphis or Oregon. So you read the tea leaves, people.
Right.
If Auburn and Baylor were in there, then it'd be like the most obvious thing ever. But now it's only kind of obvious.
I'm just waiting for Oregon to really start like
pushing.
Oh, you signed with you committed to Oregon? Here's your $1.5 million NIL deal with Nike.
Yeah. Would you like your own shoes, son?
Right.
You can play for penny, or you can have your own pennies.
Right. I'm waiting for that to hit. It ain't far off. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, I'll tell you that ain't far off. I'll tell you that much.
Any visits yet lined up for the Miami game?
Yes.
All right. So stay tuned.
Yes. There's yeah. And it's gonna be a big weekend on campus. I thought I would have more to say today, but I don't. Soon. I'll have more to say soon. I was hoping it was
in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was hoping it was something that was all going to be ready for public consumption by today, but it wasn't. So soon. That's what I got for now on basketball.
All right.
So, all right, buddy. Let's get out of here. My wife's on the phone with my brother behind me, and I don't know how much of that you can hear on this podcast. So,
none.
If she said anything incriminating, I haven't heard it. I
haven't heard anything. So
okay. Good. He's Dave Simone. Oh, tomorrow night. If you're a student, if you're on UC's campus, or if you're a fan and you want to get a chance to say hi to Wes Miller and the team, they will be all at Neo's in Clifton tomorrow night. They've got a couple DJs. They've got a party tent set up outside for safety purposes. So it's a welcome back party for students. It's a welcome Wes Miller party for fans. The basketball team is going to be stopping by. So if you want, Friday night, Mio's in Clifton. Starts around 7, 8 o'clock. So stop by, check it out. I meant to get that in earlier, but I know you're all still listening after 25 minutes of us rambling about Fountain Mountain Dew and spiked Mountain Dew and all that other good stuff. So if you've listened this far, you owe it to yourself. Get to Mio's. Maybe get there a little early, get some dinner, and then hang out for the welcome back party for students and the welcome party for Wes Miller and the UC basketball team. That's going to wrap it up. He's Dave Simone. I'm Chad Brendel. It's the Holy Grail BCJ podcast right here on BearcatJournal.com.